This is ILF Radio, our weekly podcast, where we peek into the soul of Indian heritage with our esteemed guests and listen through the old seasoned walls. Today, we'll take a dip into the holy waters of Prayagraj. This is the city of Triveni Sangam, the meeting of holy rivers Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati, and the historic location of Kumb Mela. As the Mughals moved to Prayagraj and enchanted the city with their splendid architecture, we see constructions like Khusro Bagh. We're in today's episode investigating its social, political, and architectural background. Skipping forward in time, we'll explore the colonial architecture of multiple churches and universities housed in the city. So let's dive right into it.
Hi, I'm your host Rashmi from India Lost and Found, and we're here for another episode. We're going to explore the various layers of history of the city of Prayagraj, also known as Al-Habad, through structures built during very different time periods. To take us on through this journey today, we have Mr. Nilesh Narayan, the founder of Holy Waters India Journeys, a travel startup based in Prayagraj with a view to enriching human experience through the medium of travel and tourism. Nilesh Narayan is currently serving as chapter chairman of Prayagraj Chitrakoot for TWA Uttar Pradesh, a leading travel trade association comprising top hotels, travel agents, travel bloggers, having 250 plus members from major cities of Uttar Pradesh. He holds an MBA from the Indian Institute of Travel Management and has been running the startup for over 4 years. Nilesh believes in providing experiential tours that connect people to history, heritage, culture, and community, and we look forward to having such an experience today. The story of Prayagraj has to begin with the story of the Triveni Sangam, the holy meeting of rivers Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati. The city of Prayagraj is located near this most sacred site. Since ancient times, it has been believed that a bath here would wash off all your sins. It is also the location of the Kumbh Mela, the largest religious congregation in India. The first written evidence of the Great Kumbh Mela can be traced from the accounts of the Chinese traveler and writer Huanzang, who visited this holy city in the 7th century during the reign of King Harshvardhana. Moving our attention to the period of the Mughals, when the Mughal Emperor Akbar laid the foundation of a new city in the year 1575, he named it Al-Habad, which later came to be known as Al-Habad. Today, officially, the city is known as Prayagraj. It continued to be a provisional capital during the Mughal Empire, and later the British also showed great interest in the city, and a treaty was signed between the then Mughal Emperor and the British East India Company. Al-Habad, or Prayagraj, as it is known today, also played a very important role in India's freedom movement, beginning with the revolt of 1857. In today's talk, we will explore the various Mughal and colonial influences that still exist in the city, like the Mughal royal family's burial site of Khusro Bagh and colonial buildings like churches, cathedrals, and the famous Al-Habad University. Did you know that Prayagraj is also called the city of churches? Interesting, right? Keep listening to find out more. Hello, Nilesh. Welcome to ILF Radio.
Thanks for having me here. Appreciate the introduction, and it's great to be speaking with ILF Radio here.
So your passion for heritage has led you to start a company at such a young age. Tell us more about your journey.
See, the idea of starting a company at a young age was to exploit the opportunity of tapping the untapped market of Allahabad's tourism business. While it continues to be, there was a demand for a quality service provider for tourism purposes, and that wasn't being supplied by any other company yet. And here comes Holy Waters to fill gap in the market. The whole objective of starting Holy Waters was to cater to the need of the international tourists, that is inbound market, and who are not aware of Allahabad's rich heritage and tourist spots. The aim is to promote Prayagraj as a wholesome micro destination, diversifying tourism away from other bustling centers of Uttar Pradesh, and thus putting unique cultural nuances and activities of the region in limelight amongst visitors, and introducing them with art, history, culture, and cuisines of the destination, where travelers can find their specific travel interest or and taste and preferences, along with a bunch of dedicated tour professionals to guide them in and around Prayagraj.
Wow, that's really wonderful, and I'm sure so much of thought has gone into it. So, like we were talking before, and you rightly said that the history of Prayagraj is incomplete without, talking about the Sangam. So let's start from there. How did a geographical location of the meeting of three rivers come to become a cultural idea of, washing away sins?
See, in Hindu tradition, Triveni's Sangam is the confluence of three rivers.
Okay.
Sangam is a Sanskrit word for confluence, and the point of confluence is a sacred place for Hindus. According to Hindu mythology, taking a bath or holy dip in the Sangam is supposed to flush away all your sins and free you from the cycle of rebirth. Triveni Sangam in Prayagraj has two physical rivers, Ganga and Yamuna, and the invisible river Saraswati. Triveni Sangam is a place of religious importance and site for the historic Kumb mela that is held every 6, 12, and 144 years. The founding myth of this Kumbh Mela is attributed to the Puranas, where it recounts how the gods and demons fight over the pot of Kumbh. Kumbh is a Kumbh means pot of Amrita. Amrita or Amrit is the elixir of immortality that was produced by their joint churning of the Milky Ocean. So during the struggle, the drops of the elixir fell on Kumbh Mela's four early sites, and these early sites are Haridwar, Nashik, Ujjain, and Prayagraj. So during the Kumbh Mela, the rivers are believed to turn back into that primordial nectar at the climatic moment of each. So the Kumbh Mela is organized at four different locations, and the four locations are Nashik, Haridwar, Ujjain, and Prayagraj. So this is the geographical location or the geographical importance of the three rivers we were talking about.
Right. So like moving a little forward in time, let's talk about the Mughals. And so the Mughals, tended to build grand monuments as an ode to, the deceased ones. Like we have the Taj Mahal, as an epitome. But today, let's talk about Khusro Bagh, which is in Prayagraj. The Mughals, like we mostly know the Mughals as being connected to Delhi and Agra. But how did they come to Prayagraj?
See, if you look Prayagraj or Al-Habad from a bird's eye view, you'll find that Al-Habad is basically an island surrounded by waters. That is two biggest rivers of the country, Ganga and Yamuna. So the Mughals came to Al-Habad due to military compulsions. You're talking about Khusro Bagh, and Khusro Bagh is a very later phenomena, much after the mighty Al-Habad was built. So the fort of Al-Habad was built in the year 1583 and was a response to several uprisings that had been taking place in the eastern region of India during that time. So after realizing the strategic importance of the city, and that is surrounded by waters, Akbar decided to build a massive fort on the banks of river Yamuna. And it is where the foundation of the fort was laid in the year 1575. So according to the medieval historian Badauni, it was the foundation of the fort was laid in 1575. That is on the pious location of the Holy Sangam. So interestingly, that was also the year when the foundation of the city Al-Habad was laid by the Mughal Emperor Akbar. While revering this city as the city of God, Shah Jahan subsequently changed it to Al-Habad, now Prayagraj, where the illustrious fort we are talking about is best known for its Hindu-Islamic architectural mix and is believed to be the largest fort ever built by the Mughal Emperor Akbar. See, the bastion was essentially built in irregular triangle shape for military purpose, and ever since its building years since the 16th century. So in 1798, the Allahabad fort was captured by the East India Company, and since then it has been under army control, and it is the largest garrison ever built. So you were talking about Khusro Bagh. So before Khusro Bagh, the earliest Mughal monument that Allahabad has ever witnessed is Allahabad Fort. So
Okay.
it was very important to mention Allahabad Fort before we come to Khusro Bagh. So when we talk about Khusro Bagh was originally built as a pleasure resort for Salim Jahangir, and who came to Prayagraj as governor in 1599 and declaring himself as Badshah in 1601. And in 1601, he dissented against his father Akbar. And after the death of Akbar, Salim ascended the throne and assumed the title of Jahangir.
Right.
So a few months later, after Jahangir's accession, the history was repeated once again, when Sultan Khusro, and do not confuse Sultan Khusro Mirza with the great Sufi mystic Amir Khusro. And this Sultan Khusro revolted and was completely defeated by Jahangir. So in 1622, what happened is what Khusro was captured and blinded and was eventually murdered on the command of his own brother, younger brother Khurram, who was later called Shah Jahan. So in Khusro Bagh, we have the mausoleums of three important Mughal figures. We have the tombs of Sultan Begum or Shah Begum, Jahangir's first wife, and she was a Rajput princess, and Rajkumari of Manbai of Amber. And we have the three tombs. Out of the three tombs, Sultan Begum's tomb is the earliest tomb among the three. So next, the second oldest tomb is of Khusro Mirza, who was the eldest son of Jahangir and was heir apparent to the Mughal throne. And the third tomb belongs to Nithar Begum. She was also called Sultan Nisa, the real sister of Khusro Mirza, and she was the daughter of Sultan Begum. So this is a brief history about the Khusro Bagh Mughal garden.
Okay. And, like the Mughals, of course, when we see all the buildings that they built, they clearly believed in ornate architecture as a tribute for their, like for their loved ones who were no more. What features of typical Mughal gardens and architecture can be seen in Khusro Bagh? And like, is there something that's different or surprising?
Khusro Bagh is a beautiful 16th century stone walled garden and a burial complex situated in the old city of Al-Habad neighborhood. The design and layout of Khusro Bagh is an eclectic mix of multiple Mughal elements in one place, whether it is the Quran-inspired Charbagh garden or the grand Khusro Bagh gateway in the south that was built in the year 1601, and that reminds you of the Buland Darwaza in Fatehpur Sikri, and is a spectacular example of the Hindu Mughal architecture. So the design of the mausoleums in Khusro Bagh is attributed to Aka Reza, Jahangir's chief artist. And the most surprising feature of Khusro Bagh is that we have a fourth tomb dedicated to some Tambolan Biwi. So where ASI says that it belongs to Istanbul Begum of Fatehpur Sikri, though Tambolan Bibi is an unknown personality in the books of history.
That's really fascinating. And I'm sure many people may not be knowing about that. So now let's fast forward a couple of centuries and talk about the colonial built heritage in Prayagraj. So there are churches, cathedrals, and the famous Al-Habad University also. And the idea of an All Saints Cathedral is also fascinating. Can you tell us more about it and how Prayagraj came to be, actually called the city of churches?
See, the colonial heritage of Allahabad dates back to 1857 when the uprising was quashed by the British rulers, where Earl Canning or Lord Canning departed from Calcutta for Allahabad and read out Queen Victoria's proclamation about the transferring of control of India from the British East India Company to the British Crown and in Minto Park. So after Queen's proclamation in 1858, Allahabad became the capital of the northwestern provinces and was the capital of the United Provinces from 1902 to 1920. So, after suppressing the Indian rebellion, British rulers came up with a very well calculated and strategic plan of building Allahabad as a central administrative seat for the British High Command. This was the time when country's largest town planning project was being carried out here in Allahabad, that is to say, before the establishment of New Delhi, resulting in large-scale infrastructural developments of the city, such as setting up of new townships and neighborhoods, construction of principal roads, establishment of new civic buildings, boulevards, churches, clubs, etc., and etc. Out of all the churches that were built post 1858 development project, the All Saints Cathedral is considered to be the most beautiful amongst the all. The cathedral, also famous as Patthar Girja Ghar or Church of Stones, is an Anglican cathedral located in Civilians area of Allahabad city, where it is believed that the cathedral was actually planned to be raised in Australia, but due to a postal lapse, it got assigned to Allahabad simply by chance. So this cathedral was built in the year 1891, and the idea behind the design of the church was based on the 13th century Canterbury Cathedral in Kent. So Canterbury Cathedral is the cathedral of Archbishop of Canterbury and the leader of Church of England. So it was in 1871 itself when the Lieutenant Governor of Northwestern Provinces, Sir William Muir, donated the land for construction of the church, and the foundation stone for the structure was laid by Elizabeth Huntley Bemis, the wife of Sir William Muir. And the famous architect from Britain, Sir William Emerson, was chosen to design the structure of this cathedral, while he was the one who had designed the Crawford Market of Bombay, the Muir College of Allahabad University, and later on Victoria Memorial of Calcutta. The most interesting thing about All Saints is it's actually an incomplete church, and as the building never received its intended twin towers on the main entrance, although it was consecrated in 1887, but it took another 40 years for it to be completed.
And what are some of the significant architectural features of these buildings? Like you've of course shared many of them, but tell us more. And how did this style evolve?
See, the erstwhile British capital Allahabad is home to some of the most beautiful churches of colonial India. There are around 14 colonial era churches and cathedrals that pay tribute to various forms of architecture that flourished during the Victorian age. And each church has its own architecture, be it colonial, new colonial, Gothic revival, Roman Italianate, in Indo-Roman, Greco-Roman, and the city is often regarded as the Canterbury of the East by the local Christian community. And though rare in this part of the world, and the city of Allahabad is also called the city of two cathedrals, one Catholic and one Anglican. So the Anglican cathedral is a Gothic masterpiece, and whereas the Catholic cathedral is the St. Joseph's Cathedral, which was built in the year 1879 and is a classic Italian style of Roman architecture. And the cathedral comes under the Roman Catholic Diocese of Allahabad. I'm talking about the St. Joseph's Cathedral. And when we talk about the Roman Catholic Diocese of Allahabad, it is the largest diocese in the world since 1886. And the history of this St. Joseph's Cathedral has some deep connections with the missionary expeditions to Tibet and Nepal. So it is a rare fact about Allahabad. When you talk about churches, the city is also called City of Two Cathedrals.
So, lastly, how did the University of Al-Habad, the Oxford of the East, come to be?
So the Allahabad University was founded by Sir William Muir in 1887. Actually, it was established in 1887, and Sir William Muir was the lieutenant governor of the United Provinces. And talking about Allahabad University is the fourth oldest university of India after University of Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. And these three universities were built in the same year, 1857. The foundation of the new Central College of Allahabad University was laid by the then Governor General of India, Lord Northbrook, in 1873. Initially, New Central College was affiliated to University of Calcutta, but later on it was merged into Allahabad University, which was once termed as the Oxford of the East due to its rich alumni and vast potential. The building was designed by eminent architect Sir William Emerson in a unique mix of Indo-Saracenic, Egyptian, and Gothic styles. The Muir College is well known for its arcade quadrangle lancet windows, vaulted corridors, pointed arches, dome chhatris, marble and mosaic floors, and one of its kind 200 feet tower, and is made up of cream color Mirzapur sandstone. These grand public structures were deliberately constructed by the British as grand public edifices to represent a legitimacy of the British Raj, and at the same time promoting the invincibility of the Great British Empire. Talking about the architecture of Allahabad University. So Allahabad University has a mix of Indian and Western elements, and the incorporation of these elements was by the British rulers was more political rather than any aesthetical belief. That is to aid themselves as rulers, exerting immense political leverage by allowing some regional powers or princely states to stay in power while the British ensured their homogeneity and intimacy among Indians, making their presence more palatable in the culture.
Wow, it seems like, the many lanes of Allahabad has so many untold stories and so many, beautiful buildings waiting to be found. And, I think the work that you do, I'm sure it enriches every tourist that, comes to Allahabad. And I definitely have a whole new perspective about Al-Habad, other than it being a place of pilgrimage. And I'm sure others who are listening to the episode would also feel the same thing. Thank you so much, Nilesh, for joining us today.
Thanks again. It was a pleasure.
With this, we come to the end of our episode. And for all our listeners, tune into Wild Radio, that India lost, we found.